Hello, super friends, and welcome to a hosting video where I attempt to explain what I think I know about hosting improv shows. I am a Dan, and this is a cheap webcam from 2016. Let's start with the really big top-level stuff. Hosting philosophies. The first, and in my opinion, most important philosophy is that hosting is not improv. Hosting is planned, it's scripted, and it's practiced many days or even weeks before an improv show. For example, on stage during a show should not be the first time that you attempt to explain a short form game. You write that explanation out, you edit it down so it's succinct and efficient. You practice it the week before the show, and you memorize enough of it that you can repeat it in a natural sounding way. Now, this sounds like a lot of work, and it can be, but it gets easier and faster once you have a script living inside your head. The amount of time that you spend preparing before a show will directly influence the quality of your hosting during the show, okay? Hosting is not improv. My second hosting philosophy, and we're just sort of getting all the uncomfortable stuff out of the way early, is that you need to film yourself and watch all of it. You have to be able to see yourself hosting. Other people can give you excellent advice about hosting, but what they tell you will always be affected by what they believe a host is supposed to look like, and that includes me. The self-image that lives inside your head, what you think you look like to other people, is false. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but it's not real. You have to watch yourself on camera so that you know what you really look and sound like in front of people, so that you can start to modify that behavior to be a better host or performer in general. Seeing yourself perform is intensely uncomfortable, especially when you're just starting out, but you have to push through that discomfort, film yourself, watch all of it. Third philosophy, respect the audience's time as well as their level of familiarity with improv. Respecting the audience's time is pretty straightforward. Earlier, I mentioned editing down your explanations to be efficient and succinct, and this applies to everything that you do on stage as a host. The audience is in the theater to see improv, and as we discussed earlier, you, the host, are not improv. So skip anything that doesn't help the improv come out on stage. All right, respect the audience's time and respect the improviser's time. It's not okay to eat into their performance time with silly bits or long, unpracticed explanations where you're kind of fumbling for the correct information. At the same time, however, you should also respect the audience's level of familiarity with improv, the audience as a whole. That means explaining and contextualizing what they're about to see in such a way that they understand it immediately and don't have to spend a bunch of brain power sort of decoding what they're seeing on stage. I call this making the show accessible, and sometimes it can feel like accessibility and efficiency are in conflict. Should you be fast or should you be clear? It's important to strike a balance between the two so the audience isn't confused, but they're also not bored. This is where writing a script is essential so that you can go back and modify that script when something doesn't land the way that you thought it would. It's okay to get the balance wrong, but it's also important to put in the work to try to make it better next time. So respect the audience's time and make the show accessible. Next philosophy, be very upfront about what you need. 99 times out of 100, if you ask the audience for something, they will be very happy to oblige. If an audience isn't applauding, for instance, it's probably because you didn't ask them to. We know that clapping for performers after a short form scene is polite and expected, but a new audience member would never know that. You have to ask them to clap. A round of applause for our players. Wasn't that great? This is part of the larger philosophy about the dialect of improv comedy, and all arts in general have a dialect of some sort. The things that we improvisers understand because they're part of our world, but audiences don't understand because it's not part of their world. Those are the things that you, the host, need to ask the audience for. There are many things that you need to ask the audience for, and you'll discover most of them while hosting by accident, and you'll rewrite your script and come back better the next time. But here are a few examples. Applause is the big one. You'll ask for applause many times per show. You may also need to tell your audiences to shout their suggestions towards the stage because people have a tendency to whisper their suggestions to their neighbor unless they've been told otherwise. You may need to ask folks to refrain from having conversations in the audience because this isn't TV. We're standing right here. We can hear you. They don't know that. If you need something, ask for it. Next philosophy, and we're getting a little abstract now, is say yes to the audience as much as you possibly can. Just like in an improv scene, you should treat your audience as though it is your scene partner. The things that they say and do have weight and should be honored. To the best of your ability, do not miss or ignore the things that the audience gives you. For instance, when I'm opening an improv show, someone will very commonly go, "Woo!" And I say, "Woo indeed, woo for you, woo for me, woo for our players this evening," or whatever fits the context of the show. The audience gave me something, and I'm not just going to let it fly past. I'm going to use it. I'm going to honor it. Saying yes to the audience and not ignoring them can be implemented in an infinite number of ways. But the other really important example I want to give you is saying yes to suggestions. Of course, you've got your surface level stuff like take the first suggestion that you hear, don't hunt for the correct suggestion and all that stuff. But on a deeper level, it's important to positively reinforce the act of giving suggestions using a lot of yes. Personally, I go out of my way to yes bomb any suggestions that I hear, even the ones that I don't use. I heard gazebo. Perfect. Perfect. Gazebo. I love it. Thank you. Gazebo. I don't just acknowledge the suggestion, right? I'm enthusiastic about it. I thank them. I play with the word as if it's a new toy that I'm really excited about, right? I positively reinforce the suggestions that I hear because it's an inherently intimidating act giving a suggestion, right? Asking someone to quickly come up with an idea and then shout that half-formed idea toward a group of people who are creative for a living, basically, that's extremely intimidating. And so when I hear it, I reinforce it as hard as I can. Don't ignore the audience. Don't even be neutral to the audience, right? Be their biggest advocate on stage. Next philosophy is pursue large energy, and hopefully none of this is a big surprise to anyone. As the host, you set the tone for the improv show, right? Humans naturally mirror what they see, so you are the de facto example for the audience and for the players. Everything we've already covered in this video is part of having large energy, writing a script and being succinct and efficient and articulate and saying yes to the audience and all that stuff. But here are some additional dimensions that you should be aware of if you're not already. Volume is obviously essential, not just for clarity, but also because the host sets the default volume for the show and resets that default volume between short-form games or long-form sets. The players will attempt to match your volume, even if they're not technically capable of it, but they'll still be louder than they probably would have by default. The next factor is cadence, which is sort of a complicated way of saying the speed at which you speak. The anchors of your sentences, the really important stuff, should be slow and intentional so that everyone knows that you're saying something important. When you start practicing stage cadence, it's going to feel like you're talking way too slow, but actually you won't be talking slow enough. Record yourself and watch it back. Next, use your hands when you talk. They're as much of a communication device as your voice and words. At the very least, you should use them to indicate very important parts of sentences. Next, position yourself appropriately on stage. Get as close to the audience as you can without making it weird. In theaters with raised stages, this means coming right out to the edge of the stage, like you're really excited to talk to the audience. I like to say, don't just be in front of the audience, go to the audience. Also, concerning positioning, avoid moving around on stage in an unintentional way, which usually comes across as pacing or like rocking. If you do either of those things, you're probably not aware of it. Film yourself and watch it back. So, pursue large energy and go to the audience. I have one final philosophy that is very important for new improv hosts, and that is learn to forgive yourself. No show is going to be perfect, and eventually you'll have a show that's not just imperfect, it's bad. You'll have bad shows. Lose a night of sleep over it, learn a couple of important lessons, forgive yourself, modify your script, then do another show. You don't suck at hosting, you're just learning like everyone else. Forgive yourself. Thanks for watching.